This actually is kind of starting to rub me the wrong way because it feels like you're taking away what makes it fun and what makes it actually like a craft. Dude, there's gonna be like major conflict, a riot or something that comes from a fake video.
Given your background and your parents and, Pulitzers and going to Emerson, I would think you'd be the guy trying to preserve pure human-made films, all analog. Do you think generative AI tools can capture those sorts of nuances in expressions and in lighting and in shadows?
You don't need anyone's permission. Everybody can now sort of dream a little bigger and just get started without any permission.
Why has the traditional Hollywood path not worked for you, Cutter? Instead, you're being drawn back to these roots of doing things in an entrepreneurial, ragtag fashion.
Hollywood is a fickle and confusing industry that doesn't, like, there's not a lot of logic. I felt embraced by that system and then also a little bit like rejected by that system. I sort of joke that I'm like, on one hand, like an established director, and then on the other, like somebody just starting from scratch. And so there's so much waiting around in the filmmaking business. I'm always, as a filmmaker, seeking ways to just take it back and do it yourself. You could say so much more with one image than you can with a million words. Nobody gives a shit in the tech industry about the greater good.
Cutter Hodierne, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to delve right in and try to understand why, Cutter, are you, just to get a little bit into who Cutter is, you grew up, I think, like largely in the DC area, went to good schools here. Parents are journalists, has won, I think your dad won a Pulitzer Prize. And sort of like a fairly somewhat like, elite background and privileged circles, but, and then of course, your first, I think one of your first films, if not your first film, won the short film at Sundance, right?
Yeah. My first, I wouldn't say, I mean, it was probably my 100th short film, but it was the first one that anyone really cared about. And it was
that anyone cared about.
And it was I made a short film called Fishing Without Nets. That was a Somali pirate, drama. So it sort of followed like this one fisherman who decides to become, who gets lured into the world of pirates. And yeah, I'd like it led to being expanded into my first feature film. So that truly is kind of my first real film. But I made a lot of short films leading up to that. But that was sort of the culmination of like, kind of like early 20s and teens.
Yeah. But I guess my question, Cutter, is like, I'm still a little mind boggled. It's like, how did you become the like AI filmmaking, decentralized film funding, like pro crypto, cutting edge technology kind of like, I'm like, Cutter in my head is the guy who's known for like going to like back of beyond remote places that there's not much technology, whether it's Somalia or it's like following U2 on their tour and being in person with them, or like that high school documentary about the basketball team. I feel like Cutter is like the person who like shreds technology and is like focused on the human side and going in person and like the tangible, the things you can feel, and like building relationships, building community. And it's all like and I'm like, how did this guy who like won a Sundance for like going to the back of beyond, like literally to like pirate nation country, people have been kidnapped and ransomed and killed. And now he's like, wait, no, let's not focus like entirely just on the human side, maybe just that, but also I'm going to like experiment with all these technologies and decentralized elements. And I'm like, I would not think Cutter would be the man to be like proselytizing generative AI tools. And in fact, I would think you would be on the exact opposite side.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, given your background and your parents and, Pulitzers and going to Emerson, I would think you'd be the guy trying to preserve pure human-made films, all analog, no And so I'm like, it's like, that's like the first thing I'm like, why is this guy even advocating for what he's
Yeah.
advocating for?
Okay, that's a great question. I think I sort of I've been asking myself that same question, and even while you were just saying it, I started to maybe realize even more that like here's
At least on paper.
yeah, and it makes sense. Like I like telling stories that are like based on true stories. I like sort of gritty, realistic filmmaking. Yes, on its
Huge premium on sincerity and authenticity and like the human emotion and capturing the nuances of that.
so on its face, it would seem like they're opposed. But here's the thing that those two things have in common, which is you don't need anyone's permission. Like to make things with generative AI, it's totally a democratization of the process. Like everybody can now sort of dream a little bigger and just get started without any permission. Like in the project that you're referring to in Africa, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I just went. Like I took some money that I'd made working for U2 and said, I'm going to make this short film, and I just did it. And then that sort of got the ball rolling really in my whole career. But like certainly for that movie is why the movie got made, was because of that initial sort of let me just get started. So I think that is the thing that
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways had been missing in my filmmaking life until the last couple of years again, like where I basically I got, I got a lot of attention from my first movie, and I started to sort of take a more, I guess, traditional approach to sort of playing the game in the system, in the Hollywood system, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just not really what I'm good at. Like what I'm good at is more entrepreneurial mindset. And so
Mm-hmm.
even when we made Cold Wallet, which is my last movie, that was
Yep.
just
The crypto thriller.
a crypto, it's like a crypto heist thriller. And we made
Mm-hmm.
that totally with that same mindset. My new film, The Shepherd, which is a UFO movie set in the
Mm-hmm.
Andes. Uh, we we just went to Peru and started sort of experimenting and putting the film together. And it was within those two projects that I really started to feel like, okay, I'm kind of getting my groove back, and I'm getting my I'm going back to my roots in a way. And at that same time, I
Uh-huh.
started picking up the generative AI tools started slipping into my life. And it was really about like the self-reliance and the independence that it allowed me. There's so much waiting around in the filmmaking business, even when a project like has momentum. Um,
Uh-huh.
you can be years where it feels like it's about to get started and happen. And a lot of things, because it's an expensive art form, are out of your control. So you're always as a filmmaker seeking, or I'm always as a filmmaker seeking like
Uh-huh.
ways to just take it back and do it yourself. And so I think that's the way. It's like they're, yeah, on in terms of their aesthetic and their sort of, yeah, in terms of aesthetics, they could seem like they're at opposite ends of the spectrum, but where they are connected is around the idea that like you could be a self-starter, and you can like go from idea to like iteration very quickly.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I think that would be the other part of it, is that there's an iterative thing that I do when I'm on set or on a physical shoot that is super, super iterative. And I'm like making discoveries in the process and sort of
Uh-huh.
going with them. And that is also an itch you get to scratch when you're working in the AI space, if not almost like much faster, because you're able to just kind of follow instincts. In the case of generative AI, if there's hallucinations, you can kind of like, hey, you can find a lot of happy accidents, but it's all kind of encouraging of that
Yeah.
discovery mindset, which I'm,
Why has the traditional Hollywood path not worked for you, Cutter? And instead, you're being drawn back to these roots of doing things in a more entrepreneurial ragtag fashion. Because I would think, you would think like having started your career, having won one of the most well-known and prestigious awards like Sundance, that you would be somebody who could work within the Hollywood system, like David Fincher or like Quentin Tarantino, or maybe there's others who are more akin to like your style of work. But if anyone, you would think somebody who's won Sundance in their 20s could and would navigate the system as is, and it would take somebody far more of a renegade who has not succeeded in the mainstream sense to take this other pathway. But you, despite having gotten that sort of fame and notoriety and success early on, have chosen not to go down that said pathway.
Well, the way I've kind of looked at it is I'm 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Like it did lead to a lot of opportunities. It led to a lot of sort of development deals opportunities, meaning like I was making, a living, like developing my next projects, but those projects weren't getting made. So in a sense, it did open up all of the doors in Hollywood. But Hollywood is a fickle and confusing industry that doesn't, like, there's not a lot of logic to why things happen and how things come together. And so I think, at some level I felt embraced by that system, and then also a little bit like rejected by that system. So I sort of joke that I'm like, on one hand, like an established director, and then on the other, like somebody just starting from scratch. And so I do think I occupy an interesting space, because the people in my world who are the most opposed to generative AI tools are the people who are the most established.
Exactly.
The more successful you are as a filmmaker, the more
yeah. I think of you in that form. I mean, and that's, at least initially, that's what, at least as an independent filmmaker, I thought of you as very established and quite successful.
Yeah. And I think that there's always new technology that allows you to shapeshift with your craft a little bit. And so I think that I've embraced it in that way as well. It's just, hey, it's a new technology, it's a new tool. And in the way that I've really used it a lot is as in a pre-visualization capacity, which is a place that I haven't had a lot of experience in the past with, being able to sort of commission really elaborate storyboards and pre-visualizations, or that it's always taken an extra step or another person. Whereas this way I can sort of be using images that I've created to sort of come into the machine and like get to the next stage. And so it's just a fun, frankly, just from a pure sort of excitement perspective, it's like a really fun thing to mess with and be able to. And so I've just gotten stimulated by it. So it's less strategic, or like, oh, I feel like I'm failing, I need to find another path, and more just like, this is what my project needs. My project needs for me to be able to express this more out there idea. This is the easiest way for me to do it. And it just became this seamless thing that fit really nicely into how I like to work. So like, I like to make discoveries, like I was saying, and I like to sort of try to make those discoveries as early on in the process as possible. So yeah, and in a sense, like it's not like a outright rejection of the way things are. And I've been lucky to be like working on interesting projects in a sort of traditional established way. But yeah, there's still enough of me that is in the that's in the sort of mindset that I was, as a younger filmmaker, that I haven't quite let go of. I mean, here's a good example: is my one of my filmmaking idols is Steven Soderbergh, who actually came on and became a part of a supporter of my last film, which is Cold Wallet. And Steven is like the ultimate example of, you would never think that an A-list director who can get, Kate Blanchett and whoever, like, just call anybody and like
unlimited funding and resources, and
he still makes films on an iPhone that he funds and shoots himself and does his own way. And I think there's time, and the way he puts it is like, there's times where you want a bigger palette and you need more resources, and then there's times where you don't want anybody in your way and you just want to do it your
Mm.
own way. And so I think in a sense, like that's probably a little bit of where I would like to see myself going is like, I'll probably always want some element of just being able to pick up and do it. And that will always remain in my toolkit. So it's like, and then, I'd still like to do like a James Bond movie, like I still like to do a bigger, like a war epic or something like those are things that would be harder for me to just do on my own.
Hmm.
So I think that's really ultimately what it is. It's not like okay, I feel rejected. Let me figure out what's new.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
but the people who I've connected with on the generative AI, like at like this Runway had a generative AI film festival, and the
Hmm.
filmmakers were mainly like young filmmakers who this was some of them, it was like their first film festival.
Yeah, they're not established in mainstream the way that, many of your films have had that wider acceptance.
And I was them not that long ago going, wow, this is so cool to be at a film
Yeah,
festival, period. So
absolutely, totally.
I was sharing that with one of my friends who's a
I get that.
very established like cinematographer, uh, who's freaked out and hates AI, and rightly so in some
Hmm.
in what he's hating on it about.
Hmm.
But I told him that I was like, look, the thing that I can't look away from is that it's 25-year-olds who are like loving this and embracing it and making stuff with it, and they don't have any established thing. What do you say to that? And that's kind of like, that's where he was kind of like, damn, I can't, like, that's a good point. Like it is sort of allowing like the next generation to just kick in the door, and that's kind of what you always want. So whether you're 80 or whether you're 20, it's like you kind of have to shapeshift with technologies, just because it might be the best way for you to tell your next story, like,
And to get past the gatekeepers
and to get past
and
the
not have to
gatekeepers.
beg and plead for entry or resources or scale, and just, as you said, just be able to do things independently, autonomously. I I just thought you would be one of the people who might try to keep the gates up, because you do have access to producers and resources and the some of the elite in LA and Washington. And I thought, maybe Cutter might try to be one of those people who will try to hold out in the old status quo
No, well,
and
I will say
and
this, like I've been,
pull the ladder up behind him.
no, no, okay, so from the time we met, which is not that long ago, my gung ho level
Hmm.
had shifted, and it was really when the latest Sora came out.
Yep.
I actually, once that one came out, and I could see a lot of like, okay, I think a lot of what I have taken pride in working in the generative AI space with is that
Uh-huh.
there's still a lot of there was still a lot of human involvement in what I did. I had to make 20 or 30 iterations of a shot before I liked the shot. So it reminded me
Uh-huh.
of shooting where I'm doing lots of takes.
Hmm.
Then I'm actually editing this stuff, and I'm finessing it in the editing space. Then I'm putting music, then I'm putting sound, and I'm there's still so much craft going into it. Now my friend sends me
Hmm.
just like, "Hey, look, I typed this sentence in, and it's created like a multiple shot edit."
Uh-huh.
It's not just like you're creating one shot at a time, which is
Hmm.
really identical to what directing and filmmaking is sort of, you're shooting one shot at a time.
Certainly.
The fact that there's like this pre-edited, there was just something where I just started to go, okay, this actually is kind of starting to rub me the wrong way, because it feels like you're
Uh-huh.
taking away the what makes it fun and what makes it actually like a craft. So I am a little bit like, as new versions of the tech comes out,
Hmm.
I would just be cautious that it doesn't, that like filmmakers don't sort of stop actually doing the thing. Like yeah, I I really looked at what I was doing with like Runway as kind of like very similar. It's almost like animating, like still a ton of work that goes into it. So I get a little bit nervous about that. So I'm like, I
Yeah.
caveat
I,
all my excitement with like, I'm also a little bit conscious.
yeah. So now that we've sort of establish a little bit better, why you are a proponent of this, more, decentralized film element and generative AI tools. I'm curious, obviously, I don't think you're somebody who wants to create, at least so far, a film entirely made of generative AI. I think of you as somebody who wants to blend, working with human beings, with talented actors in amazing, settings and atmospheres, and then, having AI elements in terms of editing, in terms of the post, maybe in terms of the pre-visualization. But I don't know if you could paint a portrait, better than me or others could, in terms of how you see the blend between traditional shooting of films in person on a set with actors or non-actors, like some of the pirates you've worked with, and then the generative AI elements, and how do they swim and have like feng shui or yin and yang, and maybe where do they not?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, for me, the most obvious use case has been uh, in the pre-visualization space, where meaning I can make an animatic or a storyboard of what I want shots to look like and really communicate that with my collaborators. A step further, once you're in the actual shoot, um, there is, so look, I change my mind from time to time while I'm shooting, and I follow,
Just a little bit,
yeah,
teeny bit.
and I what when you're standing with your friends when you're 15, you could change your mind and do it very easily. But when there's people around and there's a ticking clock and you're spending money, changing your mind has like real world implications that you have to work around. And what I've gained with my experience is if you can communicate those ideas really well and can explain why it's going to be better really well, um, it you can get away with it. You can change, you can shapeshift, but it makes you have to be triple your game in terms of like communication. So I'm foreseeing, especially with my new film, I'm going to have an idea in the hotel room at night, and I'm going to go, okay, how do I show everybody in the
How do I be as persuasive and punchy in a short and sweet
yeah
manner?
and show up like in the morning on the iPad and go, here's what I'm changing, but here's what we're going to do instead. You see, it's not as crazy as I'm saying. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and then people go, oh, okay.
And this is why.
And this is
And
why.
you can have tangible proof and evidence.
Instead of like, just trust me, it's going to be great. Like,
yeah, I'm an auteur.
Oh, yeah.
I have the vision.
exactly. Like, which is great, but like, it rubs off. Like after a couple days, people go, I've seen that guy pick his nose. Like they're, maybe he's got this together. I don't know. Like, and so if you can really stay on it. So I did a little bit of it. Like we did some pickup shoot days, which is where, we missed a couple things for a cold wallet. And by then generative AI was like bigger in my life. And so the scene that we were going to like capture, I came in with the shots like perfectly timed and a pre-edit like in there for everybody to see. And it was like super efficient. Now, there's a level of discovery that you still want to happen when you're on the day, as we say in the business, which is, you want those discoveries to happen organically, and you need to be able to move with that. You don't want to like be too planned and overly planned. So I think finding that balance to where it's like, where do you use it as a real tool to communicate changes, and then where do you like you don't want to have that level of planning. I think that's kind of where you want to decide. But I also can just see like as it's gonna keep improving in terms of realism and how photorealistic it is. I'll be curious whether like we'll say, man, what we really could use is a
Uh-huh.
wide shot of the Andes right now that we didn't get with this in the frame or whatever. And
Mm.
are we going to be able to slip in like a 3 or 4 second shot of a landscape that is realistic enough that you don't notice? Or even with visual
Yeah.
effects, how many, shots we're going to be able to do using Runway or another, tool. Um, but in any case, like I feel like, especially with visual effects, the people who are
Uh-huh.
already visual effects experts are going to be like light years ahead of everybody else in terms of how
Mm-hmm.
they can sort of adopt and use it. So
Yeah.
I would never be thinking, oh, that's great, we don't have to hire VFX artists on the movie. Instead, it's, hey, working with our VFX supervisor, how can we incorporate these things into the post,
Yeah.
flow? So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of endless. I mean, in terms of the ways.
How did your cast and your crew, how did they respond to the pre-visualizations that you had like whipped up using generative AI tools? When you did this most recently, and you're showing them your vision, your proof, this is, this is my persuasive pathway. I mean, how did it resonate or hit? Was anyone weirded out by that, or did it strike, or what was sort of the reaction?
Well, the thing that I'm referring to was so minor that um we actually were using like stand-ins, like holding their hands, like a different actor was in there. So and there was only one kind of like main character on camera. um she wasn't Zoe Winters. She wasn't so weirded out. I think everybody knew to sort of take it with a grain of salt what we were looking at, because it was a little weird. Like it wasn't as photorealistic as it is today. But I
Hmm.
think for the most part they just appreciated it. People started saying things like, "Man, Cutter's like the most prepared director I've ever worked with," instead of things that they used to say like, "Damn, Cutter really changes his mind and like what's going on?"
He's like zany and all over the place
Yeah.
and, a little
And
discombobulated.
it was something that like you could probably tell like that I give a shit about, because I never did feel like I did know what I was going for, and I do know what I want. And so
Hmm.
to ever have that doubted is a little bit like it's
Gets at the core of who you are.
yeah, it
Yeah.
gets at the core of who I am. And so
Yeah.
but what I realize is, okay, I may know that, but my job isn't just to know that. My job is also to go,
Mhm.
I have to double overly communicate this to the person, because they can't see what I'm imagining here, but I'll bet once they do, they're gonna they're gonna get it. And so certain collaborators, you're just like mind melded, and you try to work with people who are, there's like less communicating that's needed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it,
And
particularly,
depending on how long you've worked together and
exactly, like there's cinematographers that I've worked with who like, I'll just kind of like say two words and then, do my hands in a certain way. And then they're like, yeah, 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 yeah. And
we get it.
you get,
Like they just know.
and then there's
Yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
people who are like,
Unspoken.
what are you talking about? And then I go like this and they go, oh, cool. Okay. So having that additional tool,
Yeah.
but it's a fine line, like between losing any sense of the discovery that you're making and being sort of overly planning. And this is where, like, back to your original thing of like, why are, of all people, it's like, I definitely think the fine line is not getting burnt out on the material by pre-visualizing it too much. Um,
Uh-huh.
so if anything, I'm finding now that like on this film I'm working on, I'm intentionally not touching it and doing any more pre-visualization right now, because I've lived so deeply in that world that
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like a video game where it's sort of like, hey, I'm playing this game too much and I'm becoming uh too in the weeds on this. So I feel like that's potentially the dark side of it, is you your iterations start getting too far away from what the actual idea.
Mm.
uh
Yeah. And so, on that topic, Cutter, I wanted to try to better understand how do, to me, so much of filmmaking is around like lighting and shadows. and humans moving within spaces, whether it's sunlight or it's the darkness of a moon or it's inside a building, and it's humans interacting with environments, with spaces, with different lighting, and it's like creating your own universe, right? And there's a fair amount, I think, from what I understand. I'm not a filmmaker, but from what I've read and understood, that there's a fair amount of like things that just happen by chance and by fate and sort of by stroke of luck or by misfortune on a set, and it's captured on camera, right? Do you think that the cutting edge generative AI tools can capture, the sunlight reflecting on somebody's face, or, the moonlight bouncing off a lake, or, somebody moving through their home or an office in a sort of genuine way that sort of captures their emotional state at the time? I just wonder, like, you were talking about capturing the Andes, right? And like a 4K version of that. If you had a helicopter or a drone or I don't know, you were able to be there, capturing the Andes at a certain time of day or night, capturing a certain sort of glow or a certain darkness. Do you think generative AI tools can capture those sorts of nuances in expressions and in lighting and in shadows? Can that all like happen if you were to just prompt the right thing?
Yeah, well, first, I think like we call it a happy accident. So
Yeah,
happy
thank you.
accidents are like one of the most exciting, incredible feelings you can have just in life in general. Like these moments where
Absolutely.
beautiful, like a thing is happening in it, and it's just all elements are coming together.
Yeah, and you didn't even fully intend it or mean it to be
You
that way. It's
what you
just,
did was you were there and you showed up, and I feel like
yes. Yeah.
it's all about being kind of like having your antenna up and being receptive to those things.
Yep.
So I think in that sense, working
Which in my head is the antithesis of generative AI.
although think of it like this,
The showing up,
you're
happy
showing,
moment.
yeah,
Like, yeah.
let's say the prompt goes a little awry or it does something unexpected. It's sort of up to you to go, do I like that? Do I not
Mm-hmm.
like that? Maybe, hey, that thing that it just did by accident is a
Mm-hmm.
little bit like when the train just happens to go by right when you need it in the middle of that scene, or the light is doing something right in the middle of the scene that is like provoking some emotion, um and you
Mm-hmm.
go with it and you go with that instinct. I think in that sense it's a little bit though like working in the digital version of that, which is a little bit like odd, but it's not the same. Like it doesn't quite feel like the way that like nature giving you that, or like some random background element from humans giving you that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in a sense it's a different version of the same thing, which is just, is your antenna on, or like as David Lynch would say, like, are you're fishing, like, are you there with your pole? And if the pole is there, like, are you catching fish? And then
Uh-huh.
like, it's, so in that sense, that's the thing maybe not to lose sight of, is that you can make 10 iterations of an image and 10 different people might pick like 10 different images. You're still going to find kind of what your voice is, what your thing is. But uh yeah, it's a little bit odd. It's a little bit of a weird transition that
Yeah.
yeah, I would never want it to fully replace what it's like to go out with people and make a movie. And I think that's the thing where I'm going, it's really hard for me to imagine ever replacing the true subtleties that an actor can bring to a project, and the like kind of human energy that happens. It's like that's the thing that you don't want to lose. It's like you want to hold on to that at all costs, no matter what the technology is,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like I was like looking back at Fishing Without Nets, but also at Cold Wallet, but particularly Fishing Without Nets, Cutter, which was your film with the Somali pirates and the initial version of that, when you Sundance. Um, and just like being out on the ocean, and like I feel like it's the waves in the ocean crashing down, and it's that like foreboding elements of the clouds above, and then the Somali pirates, and at times like they're like dark skin in reflecting with the clouds in the ocean, and there's this like menacing elements of their expression. And I just remember looking upon that and wondering, like, could a generative AI tool really create those sorts of clouds, meeting the ocean, meeting them and their like plotting and scheming? And I don't know. Like, do you think like it could create the visual? It's not about, I see what you mean about how there's still a choice involved. Let's say a generative tool comes out with 10 images or 10 clips or 100 images or 100 clips, and then the director or whoever's in charge has to decide, which one of those clips or which one of those images. But I'm just asking a more fundamental question. Can it even create that color palette, that cloud, that ocean wave, that expression, and more importantly, combining the clouds with the ocean and its turbulent waves, and then the pirates, and sort of their menacing looks? Can it put all that together in the same way as if you were to go with a crew and shoot with some sort of a camera? Are the two comparable?
It's hard to imagine having that same level of like true, honest discovery in that same way. Like, I mean, one moment I'm thinking of in particular is in the short film of Fishing Without Nets. There's this moment where I feel like this was when I turned some corner as a filmmaker and realizing what just a simple moment could do. And there's a moment where the main character Abdi is like, he's fishing, and we create a moment out of, it's wordless. He's just fishing, and he's sort of like, it starts to sort of lay down and rest, and then gets back up, and then sees like a ship on the horizon, and then that's the end of the scene. And it was a discovery that I made in the edit, because we had shot him fishing and then resting and this, but there was something about like the silence and the wordless nature of it, that when I showed it to my partners, like at first it was like, whoa, there's something here. And you can't put your finger on it. You don't know quite why it works, but there is something about it. But knowing to seek that thing, that like inexplicable like feeling, is what
that qualia. Yeah, we oftentimes call it qualia. It's that like subjective consciousness. It's like trying to describe the taste of an apple or like the shape of a cloud, and you don't have a word for it, but it is a feeling or emotion. Yeah,
I can't remember where qualia. Someone said this to me, or said it, not maybe I heard it, was like they were trying to describe like, it was with someone was describing having a kid, and they were like, having a kid is like, you can't describe what it's like. It's like trying to explain to somebody who's never been underwater what being underwater is like. And I thought, wow, what a crazy kind of way to go. That would be an odd thing to try to explain. But those are the things I think you're seeking, and you as you discover your voice as a filmmaker, you start to realize, okay, these gut these emotions that are in the middle place between logic is like what it's all about. And so you want to imbue your movies with whatever that is, so that it's really like that internal thing is
that's at the essence.
That's the essence. Whether you're working with camera or in a digital space, you're probably still seeking out those moments. If you find one in a digital realm that somehow does it for you, I guess it's possible. I just think it's like, we all know, even me, who like I've been using the tools for 2.5 years. which is probably longer than a lot of people at this point. But even the maximum, use, no one's going to have as much experience as they do with cameras out in the real world. So it's hard to say like
Hmm.
whether that you'll get there, but I just know that people will get to some version of that because there'll be kids who start out with AI as like in their native form of
Yeah.
filmmaking. So
Of storytelling. Yeah.
undoubtedly they'll come to that. But like at the end of the day, whatever the art form is, you're always looking for that. You called it qualia.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ever heard of that?
Yeah, we'll get more into that. Yeah, it's become a little bit of a theme in some of our podcast episodes. But I mean, but I guess the question, Cutter, is like,
Mm.
do you think that sort of like in some ways indescribable moment, that special silence that you had and you observed when making fishing without nets, that silencing, some might call it qualia. Do you think, at least within your background and context and what you know about the technology, let's say you were like 20 or 25, do you think you could have a similar such moment and realization about what is a essence and a special moment
That's
of,
really interesting. I don't know because I think any experiences I'm having like that with AI have everything to do with what I've already sort of learned and honed with real cameras. So like,
but if you were to try to place yourself in the shoes of somebody who maybe had not
I
had those
mean,
experiences and not used a camera and was just, starting from scratch and trying to find their voice now.
I think so. I think so because ultimately it's like some artistic instinct that you're tapping into. So I think so. It's just for me, it's like impossible because I was sort of trained on digital,
Mm.
filmmaking. So like that was my, like with cameras. So like I I think it's possible, but it's not.
I asked this, so like, one of our previous guests, Claire Silver, she's like quite a well-known AI artist. She's had like work at Sotheby's and Christie's and permanent exhibition in LACMA in LA. She's sold work all over. But she was talking about how, her, like, basically what we're talking about, Cutter, is taste, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about taste and how is taste found and refined, and how does taste, intertwine with your voice. And she said, how does she do it? She has produced like for many of her exhibitions, she produces like 30,000 images or creations, 100,000 creations. It's a combination of her photography and her sketching, but a lot of it is using generative AI tools. And she said the way you understand who you are and your preferences and your taste and the soul is by whittling down those 100,000 images or creations and coming down to 5. You have to pick just 5. And she's like, all 10,000 of them are my babies. Those are my babies. I've spent like months and months creating these 10,000, right? And then I can only show 5 to the world. And how do I, like, in a ruthless, painful, agonizing way, how do I discard, 9,995 of them and only leave 5 behind? And she said, that's how you know who you are and what your taste is and what really matters and what is at the core of your practice and craft in this age. And I'm like, can a filmmaker do that? Can a filmmaker just prompt 10,000 times, 50,000 times, see like that many different clips and then just decide what to use by prompting that many times and then seeing what clip resonates, and not for maybe not a whole film, Cutter, but maybe half a film or specific scenes you just don't even go out into the world and sort of shoot? Or I don't know. That's my,
Yeah.
I'm trying to muse about the future.
No. I get it. I think like some people have described creativity as that, like what not, the choice of what not to include
Yeah. Yeah.
and that I think that's a really particularly like important thing with filmmaking, because that's what you're doing in the editing process. You're
Yeah.
deciding what not to include ultimately, and that's what you're whittling down. In a
Yep.
sense, like especially with filmmakers who are making movies with film coming before us, and then people with making
Mm-hmm.
films with digital technologies, the big difference was there really wasn't a limit on how much footage you could shoot with digital, whereas with film it was expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to be more selective about what you're doing. And so that question came up, in
Mm-hmm.
other words, at the last sort of big shift in filmmaking was, hey, are we now just, we don't have to make any choices, so we just shoot, and we'll make the choices later, but like that meaning in the editing, you can shoot as much as you want and whittle it down
Mm-hmm.
later, versus, hey, I only have like 5 minutes of film, I have to be really
Yep.
picky at the start. I think
Exactly.
when I was first starting out, I was leaning fully into, it's digital, just shoot. I'm a really good editor, so I'll be able to figure it out later. And then as I became a better editor, I realized, uh, well, I know I'm better at knowing what I need. And it's better for me to make those choices earlier on. So, um, in the digital filmmaking
Uh-huh.
sphere, I became
Uh-huh.
more like confident with what I know I needed,
Mm-hmm.
but I could sort of spill over and do a little bit more if I needed to, because it wasn't going to really cost us more, to take more, get more
Uh-huh.
shots or something. So I think
Uh-huh.
in a way, now we move film way into the background. Now it's sort of digital versus Gen AI. Um,
Uh-huh.
you're kind of like, now you can do, not only can you do sort of an endless number of takes, you could do it really fast and like 10 at a time without,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the speed of it is better. So I think you're sort of more on hyper speed, but something tells me that you will, just because you have that choice
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that,
Doesn't mean you'll exercise it.
yeah. And maybe the more experience you get in having lots of choices, you'll be able to hone what you want better by being able to sort of experiment a bunch, but then go, hey, at the end of the day, I don't need to do so many iterations. But to
Mm.
what she was saying, like, I definitely, I definitely relate to certain elements of that. And I think it's just like, yeah, again, it's like if you compare the sort of different stages of filmmaking, we've basically gotten more and more, we're able to get more and more takes. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to what extent will that be a good thing?
Totally.
It's kind of like, is it better that we can watch any movie and any show at all times, or was it better to just be like, The Simpsons are on? Like that was,
And that's all that you
yeah.
can watch right now. Like what you see is what you get. Yeah.
So it's all part of that same thing, and like our creative process.
The choice paradox.
Yes, the choice paradox. Uh, yeah, like that. I would say that is very much a part of it. But to her point, like it is just about taste, and ultimately you're always just sort of honing in on your taste. And like I feel like I'm almost there with being the director I want to be, but I'm not there. Like I see things and I go, it's really getting there though. I'm really getting to this place where I know I'm like, okay, now I'm I get it, I know exactly how to do
Mm-hmm.
everything I want. But maybe you'll never fully get there, and that's part of what the fun of it is, sort of striving for this like perfection.
Yeah. Certainly. I think on the topic of, trying to get there and sort of figuring out who you are, I I guess the thing I'm curious about, Cutter, is like in my head, the filmmakers of, like, I don't know, the 70s, 80s, 90s, and also the 2000s. It's like somebody experienced something in real life, like, there was like a family drama that they went through, or they went through some sort of emotional journey or adventure, or they read something in a book, and or some people have dreams and nightmares, and then it's like you're trying to create something in your head. that you have envisioned in your head, and you're trying to make that happen via the magic and bizarre element of filmmaking, right? And it's so much of like trying to take something hypothetical and imagined and in your own little mental kingdom and make it a little more tangible, right? And now I'm thinking maybe people won't be relying on their dreams and nightmares anymore. And there won't be this sense of like, oh, I read something or I experienced something, and now I want to try to like capture that genie. Now it's like instead of relying upon your imagination or something you had a vision of or a nightmare of, it's like you're sort of like prompting, and like you're like the visualization is deferred to the machine. And do you know what I mean? And I wonder how the original source, if you already have a vision, Cutter, and you're just using the tool to try and make your vision come true, I can understand using any and all tools to do so. But if you are still even deciding what you want your film to be about, and like what the themes are, what's the plot line, what's the emotions, and instead of that coming from your past or your journeys or your dreams and nightmares, if it's coming from you giving prompts, it's like, do you know what I mean? It just like changes the whole.
Yeah, that's a kind of a crazy thing. It's like where is the origin?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little bit, I don't know, I feel this way of like people are saying now on the internet, sort of you have to build an audience, and that's the way you're gonna like be able to make films in the future, is like if you have your own audience. But then it's like, but is the content just you talking about filmmaking? Like, are you now becoming more commentator than doer? And then like, where is that? So again, it's like sort of, we're all getting sucked into this like need to fill these content channels for advertisers. Uh, how much of our base experience is just, hey, I was clicking through the algorithm today, and now I have an idea. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's a pretty like abstract idea to even wrap your head around. Like, what will constitute the real experience that gave you the inspiration? I
Yeah.
don't know how to even, I don't even know how to think of that. Well, what was the thing? Will electric robots dream or whatever? What am I thinking of? Uh, I think it's like a Philip K. Dick book.
Uh-huh.
But the idea of like, will robots have dreams is sort of the.
Yeah. This very well-known famous AI artist Rafiq Anadol has this series called like machine dreaming. And it's a form of like hallucinations and it's part of the MoMA permanent collection now.
Do androids dream of electric sheep? Is the film.
Yeah. I have heard this before. Yeah. It's a powerful metaphor. But it's like, it's like Jiro dreams of sushi, or like, like Cutter dreams in code. Like, what are we gonna have going forward? I mean, it's like, going back to cold wallet or fishing without nets. I mean, how did you have the initial idea and spark and inspiration for those two films? And and how might that be different today?
Um, Usually for me, there's like one first image that is just like a peak image. So with Fishing Without Nets, it was a picture that I saw in the New York Times of pirates in a little boat starting to climb up the side of a oil tanker, and that was like, okay, I could build everything around that one image. And Cold Wallet,
Mm,
I think it was a similar
okay.
thing of like, sort of like silhouetted burglars breaking into a house. Like that was the both of them are people breaking into things, and uh and and so like it, I don't know, man, the way that ideas stick and attract to you is another sort of inexplicable thing. So it is, it is interesting what you're saying of like, where is the source of inspiration going to go? I'm so this whole, have you heard this idea of beginner's mind of like,
Very vaguely, but why don't you unspool
I
it
mean,
for
just
us?
the idea that like a little kid will have a perspective on something,
Oh yeah.
has no references, of
Mm-hmm.
your references, or somebody who's like, playing a sport for the first time might
First, yeah, yeah.
do something, but there's,
Claire Silver was talking about this, our AI artist earlier on the show. She was referring to the, yeah, but yeah, sorry, go ahead.
well, anyway, Rick Rubin talks about it in his book about the AlphaGo, the computer that beat the Go player, and it played, they like, this has like an endless number of moves that you can do basically in Go. It's like a million or some combinations of what you can do. How you can
Mm-hmm.
play the game, and the robot came in immediately and just beat the master in a way that the master had never even conceived of being able to play it. And he quit. Like he was like, I'm never gonna, like, it's it. Like, and it would, but the computer
Mm-hmm.
exhibited beginner's mind. And so I think in some weird way,
Mm-hmm.
our human reactions to how the robots perceive the world
Uh-huh.
is interesting because it's different than the way we perceive the world. So maybe for some period of time um we will be just fascinated by that difference, or the
By the beginner's mind
by
of
the
the
beginner's
bots.
mind of the bot, and the way that the
Uh,
bot, or like Cristobal, who's the founder of Runway, explained to me that the robot learns almost like the way that a kid does, by just like under seeing the visualizations of the world. And the example he used was their tool took, it's like it learned that when an ice cube touches a frying pan, it should melt and turn into water. But it
uh-huh.
doesn't know that because of physics or any sort of scientific thing. It just knows from
Uh-huh.
lots of visual input that when hot touches cold, like that's what happens. Um,
Uh-huh.
and to do that in a visual effect in the past, you would write code that would essentially be teaching it like some version of physics. So
Uh-huh.
even just like the fact that it learns with eyes interpreting the world, but
Mm-hmm.
its reference points are different.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe what will be exciting for some period of time is just our relationship with, wow, look at how the baby learned the thing. Look at how the robot thought about this idea. It's so unique, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe, but it'll have something to do with our reaction to
Mm-hmm.
what it's doing. So I don't know. I mean, in that sense, like I've heard people say things like the AI is like us discovering God, or like this is like, the Messiah like returning, like these sort of like big ideas that you go, wow, that's crazy. But then you go, well, it is a little bit weird that we now have a supercomputers that like are this profoundly upending everything, like there is some seismic shift that we are in awe of, in the way that we are with nature doing something we can't all explain.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so maybe it's just about our human engagement with awe, and and in some weird way, like maybe there's a new layer of inspiration that comes from
Hmm.
that type of
Yeah. It sounds like I'm going to have a maybe a slightly more beginner mind filmmaker, or maybe a slightly younger filmmaker who has more of a tabula rasa and doesn't have a slate as colored and slated as yours.
yeah, I think so. I think like talking to people who are more, it's their first
Yeah, it's their first.
it's their first tool.
Exactly. Um, there is a first coming up in your life because The Shepherd, which is your next film, is the first film which will have a significant amount of generative AI elements in it, correct?
Yeah, we'll see. I'm using it for, as I mentioned, like the pre-visualization. In that sense, it will have it's we've already used it a ton to get to where we are now. In terms of whether AI shots will make it into the final movie, I think
Uh-huh.
that is still like being
Ah,
determined.
it's
However, I do think it will. I think it will happen. I think we're gonna have some
okay.
shots in here that will be generative AI, but it's almost like I don't even want to bring attention to that because I don't want that to become the point of it.
Yeah, yeah,
It's kind
yeah.
of like with visual effects, no one talks about it anymore as like, oh, that movie is laden with visual effects. It's like
You don't want that to be the special sauce or the distinguishing factor.
I mean,
Yeah.
there are movies like Marvel films that are,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like all visual effects, so it is kind of like that. But there's now, like, I think people don't appreciate that, like, the sky is usually replaced. If you want to extend a set and make the street look, like it's 1865, and you might that all might be digital in the background, and so like there's ways in which it's like already just such a normal part of non-visual effects heavy movies that
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll look back and sort of laugh at the fact that we even address it as AI so much now. It's like when no one talks about like online and being on the internet really anymore as much of it's just so it's the only place
Baked
you are.
into the yeah, yeah. It's so in the foundation.
It's so in the
It's not any.
foundation. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I see. So, I mean, what sort of tools are you using, generative AI tools are you using for the Shepherd and for the visualization and then for the actual film? And what's your sort of experience and journey been like at this forefront of the battle?
so oddly enough, uh, ElevenLabs, the audio AI, was the first tool that actually entered my workflow in a meaningful, real way, which was uh, we would use it for. So, are you familiar with ADR? It's like where you're replacing dialogue.
Oh yeah,
So
uh-huh.
you might be like
ADR.
camera might be behind a character and you actually need them to say something different, and so you'll go in and um make a change or whatever. And what that involves is like the actors have to come back in and like be in a studio and redo the
Mm,
lines. So what we were doing was I would just type in a new line or a new idea for a line, and then while we're editing, we could drop that audio in and we could actually sample the actor's voice and then
mm-hmm,
put it in, and we could say, was that the right line? No, it wasn't. Let's try a different one. And
mm-hmm,
go through that. So what we did though was we still brought the actors in and then they re-recorded those lines, but
mm-hmm.
we had all the time that we needed. Myself and Kate, the editor, who we could like
Uh-huh,
try out a bunch of things, so that when we came in again, it comes back to the preparation. When we came
uh-huh,
in to re-record those lines with the actors, we got it done in a really efficient way because we knew exactly the line. We tried it out 10 times already.
uh-huh,
So that came in really in the editing process with Cold Wallet. Um,
uh-huh.
but I mean, ElevenLabs I also use in a fun way. I haven't really told many people this, which is
Mm-hmm,
so I was working with a writer on The Shepherd, and he would send me a
mm-hmm,
new draft of the script. I'll turn it into an audiobook
mm-hmm,
with a fun voice reading it and put my
mm-hmm.
headphones in, and then I'll go on like a 2-hour walk and like listen to the
Mm,
new draft of the script because I'm like an audio book and podcast person. I'm like, it's just much easier for me to take it in and
uh-huh.
imagine. And one of the
Yep.
most fun versions of that I did was I was location scouting in Ecuador for the film, and I literally was walking around in like misty Andes, on a hike alone,
Uh-huh.
listening to the latest draft of the script and like stopping and
Ah.
like taking notes on my phone or like record. But it was like this cool immersive thing. So I'm using the AI tool.
It's like a cinematic experience just trying to
Yes.
create the script.
Yes. So like in that sense, it's like I'm walking through the set while listening to the story. Such a
mm.
cool way cooler for me and way more stimulating for my ADHD brain than to sit,
Yeah, I have a brain like that too. That
try to read the
sounds
script.
amazing. It sounds remarkable and allows you to focus.
It allows me to focus, and it's like I need the other distraction, I need the visual distraction to allow me to
Hmm.
pay attention. So that's a really kind of
Hmm.
odd one, but I mean, I'll also have feedback sort of conversations with my chat robot on ChatGPT and kind of go, hey, I'm thinking of this and that, what do you think? And sometimes the ideas are good, sometimes the ideas are very stilted and cliche, but again, it's just a quick way for me to go, ooh, I'm at a right or left point. I can't call, so and so to they're busy. Okay, let me just throw it in here. So there's a little bit of that.
A little
But
bit of gut check, yeah.
but the main one is using Runway and using Midjourney to like
Uh-huh.
fully visualize scenes. And what it's taught me is, even with prompting, I need to be like the most articulate, descriptive filmmaker I can be. And so,
Hmm.
oddly enough, it's a bit like practicing writing, better description, uh, communicating ideas to a collaborator. Just the collaborator is this image generating robot. And I've noticed that the better I describe something, the closer I get to what I want. And so it comes back to like, I don't want that to disappear. I want us to still have to like communicate the idea and for that to still be the craft. And that's probably where I'm like still on the more established old school boat, hanging on to it, going, no, I want to be involved. Like, I want to do this stuff. Like, I don't want to just go, oh, cool. There's plenty of things I want to automate, like, but this isn't really one of them, like, so if I'm feeling like it's actually challenging me to be a better communicator, then I feel like I'm growing at a hyper speed. Um,
There's a journey and iterative element to that, and it like forces you to clarify and it's like sharpening your lens.
yeah. And I mean, what the thing I've described before to people is like, I'll have multiple windows open where it's like, I have the script open, I have an image and video generator open, and then I've got like Adobe Premiere open, meaning where I'm editing. So
Hmm.
there was one really important moment in the script that when I started to visualize it, I realized that there should actually be a pretty dramatic, like, a turn of events, I'll just say, at this one scene that I didn't imagine first. There was a hallucination that happened when it's the main characters in the film arrive at a place, and instead of just
Uh-huh.
arriving at a place, a
Uh-huh.
conflict emerges between them that I didn't have in the script before, but that
Mm.
something in the image or the video at this point, truthfully, I can't even remember what the accident was, but I went with it and I said, oh my God, there's a conflict is totally needed right here between these people. I can just see it. And that evolved. And then I go back into the script and I changed
Uh-huh.
this in the script. So there was a true feedback loop that was,
From the hallucination, so the AI tool hallucinated accidentally.
but I went with it. That was the difference. Was I
Ah,
said, oh shit, that's actually a really good idea, which is
the
ultimately,
mistake is a good idea.
yeah. And it reminds me of filmmaking where when you're
Yeah.
making, somebody might suggest something that is sort of an afterthought, and then you go, wait, no, that's really good. And your job as a director is to make those choices of like, if an idea floats in, do you use it or do you let it go? Um, and it was like this was
Mm.
happening now, like the way it would on a set. Uh, but
Mm.
I was doing
Where that happy accident that we were talking about before.
yeah, but running with it, embracing it, and then actually going back and changing the script. So it's like the script here
Mm.
goes to images, goes to video. Oh my God, in the video, this accident happened, goes back to the script, change the script. And then now we're doing it. And so then I would kind of take that attitude for like everything and go, there's probably more moments like this that I'm I'm either doing too much or not doing enough. And I would also argue that the for me, being able to see things and find that sort of qualia, I think I don't
Uh-huh.
know if I'm using that right, but I'm gonna try. Which is
Qualia,
like
correct.
you sometimes in a film, you just all you need to do is like hold on a character's reaction, and that's the whole scene. Versus
Mm-hmm.
on a page, you might think, okay, I need this and I need that, I need this and that. And then what I'm always doing is like reducing things and throwing things out on a film set to actually be like simpler and uh, yeah, just more simple.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes being able to pre-visualize that reminds me of that ability and go, no, man, all I need is for this character to be looking up at the sky and for this thing to go by, and that's it. And you're gonna go, whoa, there's something happening, versus needing to cue it up with other things and dialogue and all of this. It's
Mm.
kind of like just getting, for me, as in the writing process, it gets me a little bit more reminding myself that, hey, this is a visual medium. You could say so much more with one image than you can with a million words. And so you get
Mm-hmm.
a little bit into that exercise of like, or that practice of like, um, reminding yourself what the craft really is, you know?
Mm-hmm. Totally. And so had there been I know you just described this hallucination, but have there been any other sort of unexpected elements of using generative AI tools when you've been creating Shepherd? Either something funny or weird or something that you didn't like? I'm curious if you or your cast or crew have had any other sort of uh, 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 unexpected or notable significant experiences with generative AI this year.
I mean, yeah, probably. This has definitely been the year where it's entered my professional workspace the most. Like I do commercials as well, and like it's entered that world. So I've done some work with like that kind of resembles animated work that I've never really done before. And I was actually like acting in it. So I was like the camera, I was the performance that we were transposing onto animated characters. So that was a sort of an interesting, like new way of working for me. Was I just did it myself. I was like in a room alone filming like me saying lines and trying different takes and then transposing those performances like onto a animated character, which was a sort of like vastly different world of work that I hadn't really been able to do, but that maybe I always kind of wanted to be able to do work in animation in some capacity. But this was like a very fast way for me to just like jump right in versus
Mm.
kind of needing maybe more people. But I don't know. I mean, it's sort of an endless state of being surprised and like trying things out. But I also do want to express like my own like a little bit of recent like ambivalence of just how realistic it's the videos are getting,
Mm.
um and the like lack of effort maybe that's needed, um which is kind of what people have thought it was all along. It's kind of catching up to that, whereas it truly hasn't been that. Like I always have to explain to people like, you don't
Yes,
understand,
sir.
I'm not convinced yet that it would be faster to make a movie this way. Like
Yes,
I'm
sir.
still, it still takes so much time and effort. But now it's really like in the last month, it feels like, well, I don't know. Maybe it is truly becoming this like you can kind of
Mm.
burp out, edited videos. I still think that like there's going to be a
Mm-hmm.
taste element that certain people are going to be better at than other people. And that's always going to, uh,
Be a key factor.
yeah, I think so.
And so along these lines, Cutter, I wanted to know. So where do you draw the red line? You know, we're talking about how realistic and powerful and amazing these tools are, and sometimes you can just bypass other steps, and you have these happy accidents starting to happen with hallucinations. It's hugely powerful in pre-visualizations that you can show your cast and crew. Where do you, at least for now? And for the, the near future, where do you draw a line and say, okay, this is where I don't think it's right to use these generative AI tools in my craft, and I don't want to go there, and I'm going to keep it as a purely human element, or is there no line? And do you think that sort of your whole palette and imagination and what's possible is completely overturned, and any and all realms of your craft can be influenced by a generative AI tool?
Actors, like I don't think I have any interest in like losing human performance in a thing. Like I just, that to me isn't even exciting. Like it's not yeah, like the essence of like an actor's performance, or like the reaction that a subject in a documentary or something would have, is just like I don't have any like desire or joy to come from like taking that out of the equation. Like to me, that's the whole thing. So is there a world where like an actor can now play an animated character and do it in a much more like seamless way? Yeah, and that could be cool, but like that base performance that it's coming from, I think like that's where I would definitely draw the line. Is I wouldn't, the whole like
Mm,
text to video
hmm
prompting where it's like human actor, or like or sorry, robot actors, like
hmm
I just don't think that's that interesting to me. Like I think
hmm
that's probably
hmm
where I truly draw the line. But like I don't know, everything is it's really we're testing everything now of like because then I could
hmm
go, well, I don't know. I mean, also the camera, like I don't want to like replace the camera, but then on the other hand, you go, well, some shots, maybe it'll all be digital. And
hmm
uh, we've been facing that already. Like we've already been dealing with sort of visual effects. Maybe this is just all a digital
hmm
shot or whatever. So in that sense, I'm a little like more liberal in maybe, okay, some shots will be AI generated. But when it
hmm
really comes down to like an actor committing and giving what they do, like it's,
hmm
I don't know, not, that's a place where I would definitely draw the line, I think.
Didn't draw the line. Okay. Okay. Um, and are there any particular areas of generative AI within the world of filmmaking, independent filmmaking, or Hollywood that have been particularly sort of annoying or problematic to you? Has there been any particular use of the tool or conversations around use of the tool um, that you found to be problematic, or have like sort of, caught you by the balls and been like, oh, I don't know why we're talking about this, or I don't know why we're doing this, and this phenomenon is happening um, in the past year or two?
I mean, probably just the like fake news videos. Like that's probably the thing I'm the most like, yo, we are
In the news,
we're on
in a
in
non-fictional
a
sense, yeah.
nonfiction sense. To me, that's the stuff
Uh,
that is like, hey, did you see the movie Mountainhead?
yeah, yeah, I did.
Like what was going on in that movie, that was like one of the most prescient concepts for a movie ever. Or, like it was so like, uh, I mean, I liked the movie generally, and I had like some issues with it, but for the most part, I was like, hey, this is a crazy warning. Like, and then it's like Sora 2 comes out a few days, or like a few months after or whatever. Like, it is, I just like, dude, there's going to be like major conflict. There's going to be like a
Hmm.
riot or something that comes from a fake video. Like it just, I'm so sure of it. I mean, there's already been, elections in other nations that are affected by robots, and
Hmm.
arguably our elections, and whatever. But like, imagine that we're seeing like, I don't know, an assassination video that we think is real and actually happened. Or
Hmm.
maybe, I don't know, what if a public figure did die, but uh there were conflicting like videos of like what actually happened, and then that triggers the right group of people to go after and do something. I don't know. I'm just like, that's the type of thing where I'm like, dude, we are
Yeah.
fucking in for it. It's like being able to make a scene in a movie look really realistic is like the least of the
Well, I guess they're two sides of the same coin, right? If you can do it in a film, then you can do it in a non-fictional sense as well, right? The same technology can be used for two different purposes.
yeah.
And if the VFX are so good or the AI generated effects are so good for a film, then they could be great for propaganda too. So it's, if we're supporting it in one sense, where in theory, I mean, maybe we might have guardrails, but in theory, if you can do it in one setting, you can do it in another.
Yeah, but like, okay, guardrails, who's going to set them and who has any incentive to set them? Like, nothing is about the greater good. Like nobody gives a shit in the tech industry about the greater good. Like I saw a clip of Shane Smith, my guy, my godfather, interviewing, I think he was interviewing Sam Harris, and Sam Harris was talking about like how billionaires, like we should be publicly shaming the greed of billionaires rather than like there's no incentive now for billionaires to be like giving away all of their money and doing this, or there's no, or I should rather say there's no like outcry against their behavior. And that he used the example of Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, being the one canceling foreign aid to other nations. He was like, this should be a apocalyptic event for him as a person, but it's not. And so you go, if that's the world that we live in, where the richest person in the world is actively cutting foreign aid, like that is why would we have any reason to believe that there would be guardrails put on an addictive, realistic video creation technology? Like, we are in for it. Like we are just,
we're wading into tech policy now, which is my day job.
yeah.
And I spend a lot of time writing and thinking and talking to people about this. I mean, the tech companies, very frankly and clearly, Cutter, say that they give a lot of damns about safety and guardrails and whether it's Meta or it's OpenAI or it's Anthropic or it's
Do you think
Microsoft
they
or it's
do?
Google. I mean, obviously there's always going to be some gap and distance between what they say and the policies that they put out and then what is actually implemented and, the experience that people actually have. And sometimes in different countries, there's different, policies implemented and experience had. I mean, I think they do pay a lot of lip service to it for sure. And they do make some attempts to try to curb disinformation. And there's now watermarking that's starting to be rolled out and become normal across most AI platforms, so people know what's AI generated and what's human generated. I think there's a lot, certainly a lot that they've promised and some attempt to actually implement it. I mean, ultimately in the long run, I don't think it's just purely profit, because otherwise it would be just like yellow page journalism, right? We're just going to do whatever allows somebody to spend the most amount of time and eyeballs on our platform. And I mean, that sort of like toxic mentality will only get you so far. Ultimately, you have to have some sense of what's best for your users, mental health and sense of reality and truth. It's a balance between thinking about profit and shareholders and eyeballs and then what's best. And I think it'll always be a conflict in tandem, but I don't think they're just all ruthless monsters, Sam Altman and Sundar Pichai. I don't think it's just like, oh, they just do whatever it takes to, make the most amount of money and have the most attention. It's a balancing act, and sometimes they veer too much one way. And, I don't know if they ever veer too much towards, thinking too much about our privacy and our well-being, but I'm sure sometimes they think that they're pandering to their policy side more than they are to their profit side. But I think we'll save that for another conversation, and maybe we'll have more like policy-minded focus at some point in the future. But I wanted to move the conversation and at some point maybe start wrapping up. And I had a few questions from my our dear producer and editor Aditya actually. So I wanted to delve into a couple of those. So one was, do you think that AI films are going to become a genre in and of itself? And is that going to be like a separate thing and separate film festivals and category? And
I
it
mean,
just
I would guess that it will be a genre for a while until there's just a hit that makes us go, we don't care anymore. That was so good. It crosses over. It's kind of
Mm,
like, it's kind of like there's there was no porn actors that could go and become real actors. It's like, when will but until there's one, and then it becomes okay. Like, will there be an AI movie or show that is so good that it crosses over and is no longer defined by its technology? I think time will tell, but I imagine, like, if we come
mm,
way far into the future, we won't care so much about the technology being used if the
mm,
storytelling is there. But I think what's going to be interesting to me, and I'm not sure how I feel about this, which is that I think there's going to be a level of customization that is going to exist, that meaning, like, a streaming platform will go, we're going to give you the custom ending, or you can kind of, like, it'll know enough about you that it'll make adjustments to the film
mhm,
for you, and whether that will be automated or like user prompted. um I don't know how that will work, but like, I could imagine that being, again, like, I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, would you having the ending of Inception, where, like, in your version it actually falls, or like, you like, know, like, it knows that you want a happy ending, so it like delivers a happy ending, or
mhm,
it knows that you like longer, slower paced movies, so it gives you like a longer edit of a
mhm,
movie. I don't know, like, I don't know. I think in the short term, yeah, it'll be a genre, and then
mm.
in the long term, I think those things will blur the same way that visual effects.
I guess we did with like Lion King or Toy Story with animation, or Tom and Jerry or Popeyes, and that's yeah. I guess we just thought
Well,
of them as
those
films at
things
some
are
point.
still, though, you think of those as, it's an animated
Yeah, yeah.
feature, right? Like, you get there,
I guess it's not just a film.
but
Yeah.
it's maybe visual effects is the more, uh like, if you were to show somebody a Marvel movie, you take somebody from 1980 and show them a Marvel movie, they would probably go, "Oh, I'm calling this a visual effects movie." Um,
Hmm.
Whereas now it's just a movie, and so I think that's maybe that same pattern will emerge. But I think that the landscape has the potential to shift so dramatically into interactive,
Hmm.
like, user-based experiences, that I
Hmm.
I mean, I could almost see it being like, it's just unrecognizable. Um,
Hmm.
Even we sort of glimpsed at it when VR became kind of a thing 6 or 7 years ago. Like, everybody was talking about, like, yeah, we don't want to be limited by rectangles anymore. Everything is 360 and immersive, and you kind of go, yeah, I guess that is kind of cool. But then the whole thing of filmmaking is, look here, okay, now look here, okay, now look here, and then look here, and you're like guiding where to look.
Hmm.
All those things change in the 360-degree thing. You have to cue people to look in a different way or whatever. So
Hmm.
the art form inherently was changing to be for VR. So I don't know how the art form will change as, like, films become more, maybe choose
Hmm.
your own adventure, or it choosing for you what version to show you.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's
Yeah.
again, it's like both, like, oh my God, I want to die, and then also like, wow, this is so cool. It's there's like existential dread and like incredible optimism all at once.
Yeah, yeah. Totally. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that. I don't know, that Humpty Dumpty, that upside down
Yeah.
world to some extent. Not completely, but to some extent, I'm looking forward to it. And then this was another good one from Aditya. There's still like a lot that has to be done by humans right now to make an AI film or a mostly generative AI film, whether it's prompting or it's the pre-visualization or it's the taste or, you know, I just think there's like still a relatively heavy element of like back and forth between humans and machine to make a film, even like an AI or generative AI film. And so curious, how much of that workflow at the moment do you think will eventually get done by AI itself and just get more and more and more simplified and automated and make it, easier to create films without humans and human element, or at least fewer of them.
You each couple of months when something new comes out, you feel like totally proven wrong about what your beliefs were. So I feel like it's so quick to potentially date this by saying anything. But I mean, it just seems like we're on track for a lot of that process to get shifted. I mean, like we're now here's one I saw that Adobe is releasing in their new version of Premiere. You can click an audio track and suddenly break it out into different layers and have different, so it's like if there's like a siren going on in the background, you'll have like a new, it'll make a new channel for just that siren. So then you can just mute that siren, which used to be a much more like, it's something that like sound mixers would do, and it was a very like arduous process, or at least one that I didn't really know how it was
Mm-hmm.
done. But now that tool is almost automated.
Mm,
That's a really tedious thing that uh, is going to save people money in the
mm,
process, but it's also going to mean that like maybe some of the sound mixer job is sort of gone, and
mm,
so things that are like blatantly like, or like, hey, I want to find a clip, and I'm going to just type in this dialogue and this clip comes up. Anything that's going to like save people dramatic amounts of time, feels like it would be positive, and people would just start going down that path because it's convenient
mm,
and easy. So I think theoretically, if that's the trajectory, then everything would get much more simple and automated. But to the extent that it's doing all of the filmmaking process, I just feel like you can never say never anymore. Every time I want to go, no,
yeah,
there'll
yeah,
always be a director.
yeah, yeah,
Everyone else might be gone, but there'll always be a director.
yeah.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
there'll be a cooler.
Until the AI becomes the director and decides to just decide like her, like, like that film Her, where it just decides itself it's gonna like go and like write books and create films and do video
Well, how about
games.
like your
So
iPhone, when you pick up your iPhone and it's made like a slideshow with music,
oh yeah, yeah,
pictures?
yeah.
I always think
I
about
saw
that
that.
as like, this little phone is so nice. Look at him just in my pocket making me a little gift, and he's
Yeah.
doing all this work, and
I try to pass it off as my own
yeah,
sometimes. It's
right.
like, oh, like for my girlfriend or a close friend, look what I made for you. And I think it'll be easier and easier to pass off those mixed tapes that we used to have in the 80s and 90s
Right.
as but really it's a little like slick nuanced bot that has created the mixtape for you. But yeah, we're gonna have to find tells. People are gonna find tells that, oh wait, did you really do this yourself and pour your heart and soul into it, or did you, or did you press a few buttons? But it might still be something amazing, a movie or a book or a playlist created by AI. It's not to say that it might be worse than humans,
Yeah,
but
it's like, what's the video version of the M dash that is the giveaway now? Like,
yeah, exactly. That's the giveaway. Yeah, 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 exactly. Um, And so, last couple of things. So, one, if you could just tell us briefly about what is this pre-visualization that you say is so key and is the biggest use of generative AI that you have in your film. Break down, like, explain to us what pre-visualization is and like how does that work on a film set? What tools are you using? What's your step by step there, and like why is that so helpful and essential?
So if you go to the idea of storyboards, some filmmakers use storyboards a lot, and some filmmakers don't use them at all. Um, I kind of fall into, I think, what's a pretty common category, which is you use them um, when you're doing something logistically complicated, like an action sequence or something like that, where a lot of moving parts need to come together, and so you use it as like a planning tool. Um, I definitely subscribe to the idea that like you should use them up to the point that it's helpful, and then like on the day throw it away if you don't, if they're not serving you. And so um one step up from just drawn storyboards is what's called an animatic, where it's sort of like an animated version of that sequence that you're pre-visualizing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like now making really advanced pre-visualization animatics. So in other words, I'm making pretty photorealistic animated like edits of a scene. So
Uh-huh.
I'll say like, here's the moment where like, yeah, so it's I'm generating an image and then I'm animating that image in Runway.
Uh-huh.
I'm calling it animating it, turning it into a motion picture, and then I'm taking those clips and I'm editing it together to get the timing and the pacing down, but to also go, this is how I want the crashed meteorite to look. This is how I
Uh-huh.
want the mood of this to look. So I'm able to really hone in exactly what I want. And what I do because I did go to South America and shoot some sort of test experimental footage,
Uh-huh.
I use those images as the base that my animated, images are coming from. So
Uh-huh.
I'm taking kind of a mix of my descriptions and my filmed material to give it its look and its aesthetic. And then you can start training your generators to be kind of like within this look.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, so it's really like where I've done it is gone to the more like visual effects intensive parts of the film, and then made these animated uh made these animated versions of the scene. And
Uh-huh.
I found it really helpful and exciting and stimulating. It kind of gives me something to do while I wait for other parts of the process to happen, which is something
Mm.
that when you're, especially when you're in a development phase of a movie, or you're waiting for people to get back to you about, reading the script or whatever, there's like you could feel like you're just sort of twiddling your thumb. So it's at least you can sort of like continue
Mm.
working and preparing so that when the day comes to shoot the movie, you've just like lived and prepared in the world so much. So, uh,
Uh-huh.
that's kind of
Yeah, wow. And the primary tool you're using is and how easy or difficult is it to use?
the primary tool I use is Runway. So I've been using,
Uh, for your visualizations, okay.
yeah,
For the storyboarding, okay.
yeah, like, and Midjourney
Runway.
as well. So a combination of those.
Runway, okay.
Runway got a lot better with like being able to generate the base image. So I did start shifting to kind of using them both. Originally, I was just generating in Midjourney and then animating in Runway, but Runway came up
Mm-hmm.
with sort of some improvements, and I'm also was in like a partnership with Runway as well. So I had a lot of
Ah.
like how to use the tools better. What's going on, what's coming down the pipe. They give us some access early to things to try out, and um,
Mm-hmm.
they're really cool and very supportive of this project in that
Mm-hmm.
in that sense, and encouraging of like, starting with previs, but like how can we keep working with it down the line? Like I think we're just at the beginning of how it's going to find its way in and into the movie, and part of it I don't know yet.
Hmm. Yeah. At some point, I would like to see a video which shows this storyboarding of yours and using Runway and Midjourney, like not necessarily an explainer, but just like sort of more documentary style of like behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
They did make
Of,
a Runway made like a video. You've
oh,
seen that about how my producer and I are using it.
do send us that. And yeah, at a different point, I want to be connected to Crystal Ball and the Runway people. I want to have him on the podcast as well, actually.
Oh, that'd be
So,
awesome.
so yeah,
They're visionaries.
we definitely want to make that happen. Before we get into the last delicious question, I wanted to talk a little bit about your mother.
Yeah.
And so before I tell you my long, winding, illustrious tale, I don't know if you just want to like contextualize it a little bit by telling us a little bit about your first memories with your mother and about her just sort of as a journalist and an editor. But first of all, as a mother, as when you were a kid.
Um, my mom was like my best friend and biggest fan, and
Alicia Shepherd.
Alicia Shepherd. And it's like I don't even know how to describe it except that I'm my mom. My mom knew me better than anybody could ever know me. I knew her in this deep way, and she was a extremely curious, extremely nosy, extremely brave and bold person, and she lived her life with like a conviction and a like just determination that was like really, really contagious to anybody who kind of came in her orbit. Like like my mom could have easily been a film producer in a separate life because she has this sort of hustler, like doesn't take no for an answer, is going to figure out
Mm-hmm.
how to become friends with someone to get a story out of them. And she was like that with me. I was like a subject in her life. She knew all the characters in my life, knew everybody really well. And then just as a journalist, she was like, she's written 3 books. One of them is going to come out this February. That was about her battle with cancer. But she wrote a book about 9/11, journalists on 9/11. She wrote a book about Woodward and
Mm-hmm.
Bernstein.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I've heard of that one.
she covered the media really extensively. So she wrote primarily about like media ethics and how
Mm-hmm.
journalists cover stories, which when I was growing up, I sort of thought of that as really inside baseball, like only journalists care about it, and thought of it as sort of like just like that. And now I look at it and go, man, that would be like media literacy would be like the most important class you would take in school these days. Like, her work in that sense is really vital to where we are in our current sort of chaotic landscape. But my mom took me as a baby, as a 9-month-old baby on a sailboat across the South Pacific that we lived on. I learned to walk on that boat. That tells
Mm-hmm.
you everything about who my mom was. That's who my mom was willing to get on a boat with a tiny baby and go on the adventure of a lifetime. So like, and when she was in her 60s, she was working in Kabul in the U.S. Embassy in Afghanistan. So by choice, like by going to,
Mm-hmm.
she'd fallen in love with someone who was working there, and she went to go get her job there. Like that's who my mom was. My mom was curious and adventurous and bold.
Gotcha. And did she play any role in you becoming a filmmaker, or sort of have strong advice or push one way or the other as a filmmaker, or on cutting edge technologies like the ones
Yeah.
we've been discussing?
My mom, I mean, I think both of my parents being storytellers and living their lives sort of through sort of what's the story as the mindset it was a huge influence. But when I started making videos with my friends when I was in middle school, my mom was very encouraging of that. And then at some point when I was 14 or 15 years old, my
Mm-hmm.
parents like sat me down and were like, "Hey, so we think that you're very good at this and we're going to like buy you a Mac to edit, to learn to edit." And I truly
Uh-huh.
looked at them like, "What the hell are you guys talking about?" Like I make these videos with my friends, but them sort of saying to me, "No, no, no, this is like going to be a thing for you."
This
Well,
could be a real deal,
I
yeah.
I I was frankly, I was kind of like, "Okay, I guess."
Like you just thought it was a silly thing that you're doing for shits and giggles, like some nonsense or something that is just some random playtime.
Yeah. And they were like, "No, you're like, this is good." And so they supported that. And I don't know, it's like both things needed to be true. Maybe I needed to have the motivation and then they needed to support me for me to be able to like start even seeing myself like that. But they probably were
Uh-huh.
like, "Hey, he's not such a good student. He's got to figure out something. Oh my God. We got to do something here because this is like." But yeah, so I did learn to edit, and then I started to become like the kid in the film class who was like doing the extra credit and above and beyond, and I had this like very precocious attitude that my mom was definitely like pouring the gas on the flames.
Ah, she leaned into it.
Oh, she leaned into it
Ah.
big time. And then so it kind of culminated in high school with I played basketball. My team had gotten, our season ended, and the team that beat us was like our rival high school, which was
Uh-huh.
coached by people who I had played for, and my mom knew, and she went to
Uh-huh.
them and she said, "Hey, Cutter wants to like make a documentary about your team." And
The
this
team that beat you.
Yeah, yeah, and, like, they're gonna do
The
they were,
one.
like, undefeated, and they were, like, gonna win the state championship. They were, like, really, like, on fire,
Uh-huh.
and my mom
Okay.
went to their coaches and said, "Hey, Cutter wants to come and make this thing," and they were like, "Yeah, great, we'll give him all the access," and then she came to me and she goes, "Hey, the coaches of Wakefield, they really want you to make this documentary."
She did that for us,
And I
did
was like,
you?
"They do? Really? Okay, okay," and so I was like, she did it. She played us like an old fashioned studio head. Like, this is how they used to do it in Hollywood. Like, and, and next thing I knew, I'm making this film that evolved into like literally a 75-minute, like feature length documentary about this team that I pressed up on DVDs and sold to their fans, and suddenly was like kind of known in my, neighborhood as being like a filmmaker who's made this awesome movie, and I had like
Uh-huh.
fans of this film, and I totally got hooked to the idea that like, okay, I can do this. I can like, I didn't make a lot of money, but I made some money to where I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I could buy a camera now. Okay, I can. And so I
Mm.
from there my mom was like in my corner as being like sort of like just encouraging me to pursue it, and telling me that I was the greatest. So my mom's
Mm.
encouragement, and she would be bragging about me to everybody, and it would be really embarrassing, but
Uh-huh.
I believed it, and dude, she was right. I was good at it, and but I did need the encouragement to to pursue it and to kind of like be a little delusional. My mom really helped in that sense. And like anyway, like I know you said you worked with her in a sort of coaching capacity. Like I think my mom's really good at motivating people, and I was the one who kind of got the most of that treatment, sometimes too much.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, on the topic of so she saw that in you in high school before even you saw that in yourself.
Yes.
Like before you had created anything significant or major, she sort of threw you off the deep end into the pool and was just like, let's just see what you can do. Presumably that's why she pitched you to that high school team.
Yeah, and by at that point I really was like I made some like local commercials for like bicycle stores and car dealerships
Okay.
and things like that. So I was like starting to really like
Okay, some smaller
hone
things.
in on my craft, but it was all because my mom was like encouraging. And I mean, talking a lot about my mom, but my dad is also like very,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
encouraging. of this, and all of that matters, and all of it matters in the sense of like I also saw that like you can work in media and that can be a job and a career, and that
Mm.
as a thing that was normalized in my life was probably
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
the biggest privilege that I had growing up was more that like it's possible to do crazy things. It's possible to chase after your dreams and do things that you can only kind of dream of, like sail across the South Pacific Ocean or go to, my dad covered Vietnam and the war in Afghanistan and the war in Iraq, you know, and the when he went to Afghanistan, he also did it as an independent journalist, and um, so I just was surrounded by that kind of growing up, to sort of normalize like chasing these things. And I think that's what, if I try, like whenever I like interact with younger filmmakers, it's to try to like imbue that
Mm-hmm.
like sense of possibility and sense of like you've got to be a little bit
Mm-hmm.
delusional, and
Mm-hmm.
the world is going to resist you chasing these dreams, and that's what you have to get excited by. You have to be excited by like we're pushing
That
through.
act of rebellion.
Yeah, it's got to be rebellious. And all filmmakers are like rebellious in some way. Like very
Yeah,
rarely do
yeah.
you meet a conventional filmmaker,
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's kind of part of the job description.
Totally. So on the topic of pursuing sort of slightly wacky, wild things and going against the grain, and what was expected. So, the reason I came in touch with your mom, with Alicia, was because I was a young journalist in Washington. This was like in 2019, and I had 5 jobs within 3 years. I was having a hard time. I was struggling to break into journalism. And, I grew up in South Korea, Saudi Arabia, India, Singapore. And I grew up, my parents were in banking and finance and, things like Citibank and American Express. And, they were very stable pathways that earned them certain money and stability and growth. And I chose journalism, which was very far away from banking and finance. My grandfather was a government bureaucrat, also very stable. He wrote books, but he was bureaucrat and a lawyer. On the other side, my grandparents, on my mom's side, my grandfather was in a businessman with a big pharmaceutical company. My grandma was a doctor. Everyone had like pursued pathways that were like relatively stable and sort of credible and had certain respect. Not to say that journalism isn't a respectable field, but nobody in my family had pursued journalism or storytelling or significant writing in this matter. As I said, my grandfather on my father's side was an author of history, but yeah, certainly not journalism. And so, anyhow, I was lucky my parents supported me, but it was my mom actually who encouraged me to reach out to your mother. It's not that she knew her. My mom was just very keen after having 5 jobs within 3 years. She's like, okay, it sounds like this journalism thing, like you are having difficulty meeting deadlines. You're having difficulty writing stories in the style and format and speed that is expected of you. Like, you have a good ear for what makes a good story. You have a good sense of what people will care about. I was great at interviewing people and building sources, but the actual act of writing the story and doing so quickly and knowing like what to like lead with, and then having like an a good flow into it, I struggled with some elements of deadlines and writing, quickly and succinctly. And so my mom was like, okay, it sounds like if you're really keen on staying in journalism, you don't want to just go off to PR or consulting or something else. I think you need a writing coach. You need
Wow.
somebody who can take your game and elevate it and allow you to become the writer and
How did
reporter and
you
journalist
connect?
that you
How did
want.
she connect with my mom, or did she know my mom?
No, no, no. She did not. This was just something she told me to do. And then I started putting out into the universe that I was like looking for, I was looking for somebody to help me get better. And I actually got introduced. I think it was like the news literacy group. There was this guy, I think Alan,
Yeah.
um, if I'm remembering correctly.
Alan
Um,
Miller, right?
Alan Miller, exactly. I literally just emailed him saying, hoping you can help me find a reporting writing teacher. And this was in like August of 2019, and he recommended your mother, and it was just completely out of the blue. Like I was just going on a wild goose chase hunt, like looking for a teacher. And there's so even in a city like DC, which has I think more journalists and editors than probably any other city in the world, I was having great difficulty finding a teacher for this experiment. And Ellen sent me her email, and then I now have like I think I have hundreds of emails with your mother and text messages as well. And we just like, she was my sensei. She was like my guru. And, you know, we used to meet at the Mayflower Hotel, the Marriott Mayflower Hotel on Connecticut Avenue. It's like one of these old, grand, great hotels of DC. And we'd meet on the side, and it was just like Alicia and me. And I remember like she had this like brightness and optimism on her face at almost like all times, but she was also stern. She was not always just like, oh, like really kind and nice. Like she knew how she was a good human being, but she was not always just like, you know, sort of just like do whatever you want. She had this sense of like, this is what you need and this is what you need to do. And she was not sparing with her constructive criticism. And so I remember like I was just in a lost place in life, right? I'd lost like 2 different journalism jobs within a span of a year. And so I was going through all these just self-reflections of like, is this what I'm meant to do? Is this the path I'm meant to be on? You know, I'm struggling to break in. I'm struggling to make money. I was like also working at like Politics and Prose doing events. I was working at a restaurant at Jake's American Girl waiting tables. And then I was doing some reporting on the side with Mother Jones in the New Republic. And so I was just like, you know, I was trying to hustle to make it meet, but it was like I had been doing journalism for like 4.5 years and 4.5, almost 5 years. And it was like, it was not fully working out. It was not fully working out for me. And then, you know, I couldn't really afford your mom. Like she was like way outside of my price range as like a kind of semi-employed, fun-employed person. But then she just like sort of like took pity on me. Like she just like felt like, you know, I know you can't afford me, but we'll figure something out. We'll figure something
Easy.
out. And then we started meeting. She brought her laptop. I brought my laptop. We just constructed this plan. And then, you know, I would just sit down and she'd say, okay, this is your topic for today. And this is something the Fed is doing or the White House or the Federal Trade Commission. And this is your topic. And this is, you know, a little bit of material. And like, okay, you have 45 minutes. You got to write a 500-word story with a sharp lead and how you want to describe it on Twitter or Facebook. And it was just like, that's it. Like the thing, like I didn't have an editor who had done this for me at these like illustrious publications I had been at. They just expected me to figure it out on my own. And they were just like, why don't you get this? Why don't, you know, you should be able to, you've gone to journalism, you should be able, and she would sit there with me and it was just this like, I don't know. It's like, I remember like the first time I learned how to rollerblade Cutter, and it was in San Francisco and I was like 4 or 5. And the key thing was my rollerblading teacher, I think it was this guy, Brad, in the Bay Area. Every time I tried to skate off the rink, he would like come like just seconds before I left the rollerblading ring. He would come and pick me up and put me right back in the center of the rollerblading ring. And that's how I think of Alicia. It's like I was like just so ready to quit and to leave and just like leave this behind, and it's like not working out. And I was just about to walk outside of the ring, and she'd like scoop me up and be like, "Nope, you're going right back to the beginning now, and we're gonna get you started all over again." And yeah, we had like multiple months together, and we were texting and we were emailing, and there was this constant just back and forth of encouragement, of support. And yeah, I guess she sort of like saw something in me that I think my parents hadn't fully seen in me. To some extent, I hadn't seen in me. Um, and I don't know, she always came across as somebody who had an immense amount of like youth and energy within her. Um, and like her like best days were always ahead, and and sort of imbued some of that I think into me. But I had no idea she had a son. I mean, she told me she had a family, like she was like married and she had I knew she had a family. I had no idea she had a son. I had no idea he was like a filmmaker and like one of like note or repute. And she like talked about how she had gone on a holiday to LA, and she had, I don't know, she'd gone camping or she'd done something. She was like, oh, I'm just coming back from holiday in LA. But like, I mean, I'm a very nosy person. I am a very, very nosy person. And I get into like people's personal lives, even in a professional context all the time. But I mean, maybe she mentioned you in passing at some point, but I never really learned a whole lot. And so I'm just, yeah, I mean, I'm a film fanatic, and I took a whole bunch of like critical approach to cinema classes in college, and I've written a lot of like film reviews and film essays, and I don't know, I would have been very interested and curious if I had known that
Yeah.
you were her son.
Oh man. Well, look, first I'm just like it's so clear to me that you got to know the real version of her and the real like who she is, and that's what's kind of making me emotional, is that like you interacted with her in kind of a way that was her at her like brightest, which is sort of sharing her knowledge and encouraging, but also, as you pointed out, like, and I probably just glossed over it because I said, oh, my mom's so supportive and this and that, but my mom was also very critical. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like I had a just only, oh, you're doing everything great. Like she would criticize my work, or she would
Yeah,
criticize
yeah.
what my choices were or whatever. So she was giving me both encouragement, but then also sort of a real world, like bold, like my mom didn't bite her tongue. And
Hmm.
and I think for some people it's too much, and for others it's like I think she was good at coddling you and beating you up at the same time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
That's
a
a great way to
really
put it.
it's really cool. But it is surprising that she didn't mention me, because she's usually like overt, like she probably was like, I don't want to, no, don't go there. Like she was, because my mom was very like too much of a stage mom. So I'm actually glad to hear that she was she was just focused on you and those.
I mean, she probably was like this guy, this young man. Hell, is way too distracted as is. He's already like floating in so many
Oh,
different directions. I don't need to give him another reason to get
exactly. That's
distracted. And
but she also, I can tell like you're her type. Like you're the type of person that she would connect with, who is like interested in a lot of things and can get really curious and deep dive on things, and who's really motivated. And so like I just can see, I mean, there's nothing more that I want really almost every day than to call her and tell her something like this. And this is one of those things that I just know, like she would just have such a huge smile and be like and just be really like blown away that we've connected, totally unrelated, but have all of this mutual, I don't know, appreciation of my mom. And so I think,
then,
yeah, man, that's so cool. And it's also just like everything you just said is such a, it's what I miss so much about my mom, and what I miss of just being able to get that thrashing and get that like perspective and excitement, and like, and you know what you point out too about the writing, versus just being a reporter. It was what my mom struggled with at first too in her career.
mm,
Was she was brought into journalism like because she was a curious and nosy person, and she had a really natural instinct for being a reporter. So
hmm,
being out in the field and getting the the
great sound bites
yeah, and knowing what
and
the
quotes
story
and
was.
anecdotes. And yeah, yeah, and knowing what the story is. Yeah,
And but it
having
was
that nose.
then being a writer was something that basically an editor said you have to get better at, and she said, okay, I'm going to get better at it. And she became a
Yeah.
good writer. So she became
Yeah.
somebody who she had one super strength and superpower to be a journalist in her curiosity and nosiness and sort of hustle mindset. But she made it a thing to become a better writer. And so I can sense from you that that was that's probably one of the reasons that she was really drawn to you was, hey, here's a guy who has all of the right instincts and who needs
Yeah.
coaching in this category just like I needed. And
Yeah.
um, so it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, and it's a cool. Yeah, makes me really happy. And by the way, there's a foundation. My mom has a foundation in her memory that uh, makes grants for the news literacy project now. So it's a
Oh.
big part of her legacy is her work with Alan at the news literacy project. So it's
Uh-huh.
things like that were what my mom loved doing, outside of her just work as a reporter, was also working with young people. And as you said, like my mom seemed like a young person. Like my mom wasn't unusual for my mom to be hanging out with people in their 20s, and it to just kind of make sense, like not and to be friends with my friends and like not need me to be around. So like she was definitely young at heart. And I liked what you said about always feeling like she had her best was ahead of her, which is also sort of the tragedy of her being gone.
I didn't even realize she had passed away, Cutter. I found this out a few days ago when I was preparing for this podcast, that she was your mother, and that she had passed, because we like kept up texting and emailing for some years. She would like read my scoops, and then like even after I'd stopped working there, she would come back and be like, this is a horrible lead. It's way too long. I don't know what you're thinking. She's like, if only you had real people editing you, I'd be so much more pleased. And then she's like tearing up my pieces, even once I'm like off at other newspapers, and then and criticizing my dead editors. And then the other time she just say, "Oh, this is like an awesome scoop. Like, I'm so glad you're like, you're out there like breaking stories and hustling." And yeah, I don't know, she just seemed like somebody who was always with it. She always was like plugged in as to like what's happening. She never came across like a fuddy-duddy or somebody who would like trample and like either discourage or just like not know what was sort of happening. And yeah, I just remember, I think it was very, very rare. I mean, I was like in my like mid-20s, and then I think she was like in her like mid-60s, and there was like a sort of, I don't know, like a film or cinematic element to like we'd meet in this like one grand illustrious hotel in downtown DC. And we were strangers otherwise. Like
Yeah,
I had
yeah.
no other connection or relation to her at all. And she just would like show up, and we'd come back to the same hotel, and usually to the same floor. And then suddenly, it's like suddenly I like put on my like student hat and like learner hat, and it was quite intense. It was quite intense. Like we're sitting right next to each other, and it's like she's like blazing like fire into my skull. And
This is so cool. I'm like, I can't wait. There's so much more I want to tell people now about this. This is like, yeah, it's you really got the full thing.
yeah, and I don't know, and she had this like lovely gray hair that somehow made her look like younger.
Yeah.
Like her hair and her spectacles actually made her look younger, I think, than she actually was.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Well, she was definitely young at heart forever. Like my mom would always say that she was like permanently 28 years old. Like it made her the best, like for growing up, like with my friends, like everyone, like all my friends were like obsessed with my mom. And like my mom and our house was like a place where people would hang out, and she loved to do that. And she loved to share her like expertise with young people. And I think she was remained young because of her exposure to younger people, like, and because she liked to
Mm.
spend time with younger people. It was always like a very natural thing. But it was like having my mom sitting around hanging out with my friends was like not. It wasn't like, oh my, his mom's around. It was just like a comfortable,
Yeah, yeah.
because she kept it real, like there's no BS about my mom. Like, she would tell you if she liked something, tell you if she didn't like your lead.
Yeah, yeah.
So, um, yeah, it's like my mom also helped me have a little thicker skin. Like, she was encouraging, but also giving me a real world sort of
Mm-hmm.
like dose of what, uh, and I think my mom also accepted me for whatever my flaws were as well. So she would be critical of them, but um, I mean, I really hit the lottery with a mom. Like, it was, uh, yeah. It's so cool to hear that. I mean, this is, and I mean, Nihal, man, I'm telling you, like, I can picture it that you probably went way over the amount of time that you guys.
Oh,
spent.
definitely.
Like, I could just fucking, I totally can picture it.
I took every moment that I could. I remember I felt I was lucky even to get like a couple hours at a time, and then she'd have to rip herself apart and be like, okay, now I have to get back to my life.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I have to get back to the real world.
So crazy.
And then we'll meet again another day.
Well, if there's
Um,
any of those emails that you think, that you'd like to share with me or whatever, I
yeah,
love
yeah.
reading those things. Like, yeah, that's so fun. She was definitely like she loved talking about the news and always about what's going on. I mean, the world today would give her so much material to be working with. I just can't even, yeah, she would have been busy. And, for whatever it's worth, my mom's book, she was working on literally until like days before she passed away. So, like, she was still
Oh.
doing the thing until the last minute. So
As
it was deep in her soul to be a writer. And
hmm.
um
That's remarkable. I need to get a copy of this book.
yeah,
I
it's called The Luckiest Unlucky Couple, and it's about my mom and her husband, my stepdad, Dave. They both had battles with cancer, and it's sort of, they call it a medical love story. And
ah.
it's coming out. Bloomsbury is publishing it, and they're releasing it on Valentine's Day 2026. So
Oh, it hasn't come out yet. Oh, this is to come out.
yeah, it's coming out
Ah.
soon. We're just like, it's just going to the press now. It's like,
Wow.
we just, the cover just got finished, and it's been a real journey to like get it actually across the finish line, but it's going to come out. So she'll have a book coming out in February.
Yeah, posthumously. Yeah, but please invite me to the book party or to the release, and let me know how I can
Well, maybe we could
how
do an event,
I and our
Politics and
podcast can be
Prose or
helpful.
something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do. I still know some of the folks there well. Yeah. I would love that. I actually have a couple of very close friends who in their 30s have had cancer, and the ways in which it's like turned their lives upside down, but also given them like a renewed lease of like excitement and energy and closeness with friends and family and sense of purpose, that even as young people, they had like struggled with until they had cancer, and then it's been like a big like reset button. But yeah, maybe we'll do a whole episode on just on your mom's book, and I don't know if there's someone else that would make sense to have a long conversation or podcast with. But yeah, we should definitely talk more about that, and keep me posted. But as always, the last thing I wanted to ask was if you have three books or three films or sort of three pieces of art or creation that you would like to recommend to our listeners as we wrap up this conversation on AI art and culture, either through books or films or artistic creations that you'd recommend to our listeners as we wrap up this conversation on AI, art, and culture?
Oh man. My favorite movie is Fargo by the Coen brothers. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess I got to put that one because I just think it's such a uh it just encapsulates everything I like in a movie. It's sort of like it's there's humor, there's darkness and violence, there's like strong strong perspective. So I love that.
Yeah, I
The
saw it a long time ago. This is incredible.
um the the War of Art. Do you know that book?
Oh yeah. My housemate Phil Linder,
Yeah.
who I run Generative series with, he gave me War of Art just a few months ago.
That one was pretty impactful for me. Um like I definitely that one that I read it at a time that really changed my life, like in a good way of just sort of getting my act together creatively. That book is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Totally.
Man, I mean, God, it's really tough. There's so many. There's this guy named Jason Zaneta, I think is his last name, who's done some really cool AI, like generative AI film stuff that he's really been pushing the limits and has shown like a real ability to like have a variety of like making things that are sort of all over the place, which is I think a really unique talent in being able to execute very different things, but also shows you uh, that you can. It's like by removing all of the other resources that you would need, like all the apparatus of film production. Not all directors get to go do like, every genre or whatever. He seems to sort of like make these different short pieces using, like, he tries out all types of different uh, AI tools and
Mm-hmm.
gets all these different products. So he's kind of a cool example of like, you could try out your style differently, try out different genres more quickly and sort of experiment.
Mm-hmm.
He's done some really cool stuff. Okay, there's this artist. There's this artist who I worked with on a project once called Sugwin Chung, and
Mm-hmm.
she has been collaborating with robots like for like over a decade in this crazy way, like making um
Oh yeah, Korean artist. Yeah,
yeah,
I think I've heard of her.
she's a visual artist, like painting and stuff, but her work has always had something to do with the intersection uh of those worlds. And we made a film like 8 or 9 years ago that was like a film exhibition, like that played at with her
Uh-huh.
exhibit at New Museum, and it was like literally a collaboration of her with like robots who were painting with her, and the robots were
Ah.
painting based on like patterns that cameras had filmed of pedestrians moving through New York City.
Uh-huh.
And she's like collaborating with them. And it was so like, she was someone who when I first started speaking with her, our reference points were just like not at all the same. And I was just like trying to learn how somebody who thinks entirely differently than me operates, and then trying to collaborate in a way, and really having to sort of come into her world. And it really shifted how I was thinking. And I've
Mm-hmm.
never worked with anybody who pushed the limits of how I saw things than
Uh-huh.
working with her. Like she's like truly like really, really like thoughtful and provocative, like way always ahead of her time. Like I'm
Time.
curious what she's doing right now, because it's probably what we're all going to be thinking about like a few years from now. But honestly, man, she might be a cool person for you to talk with, because she's just such an interesting, like, uh, yeah, just an interesting thinker, on top of the fact that she's like a really talented artist in executing these ideas. She's really like provocative in how she's seeing the world.
How did she get that perspective and be able to peek around corners and know what's coming or be curious about the right things?
I don't know. She must have been abducted by aliens when she was a kid. That's like that's the only thing. But I don't know. Some people maybe are just They just are
Oh,
touched differently. But she was, yeah, it's a really cool film that we made. And again, it was like her correcting me constantly of like, I'm bringing too much of a like traditional narrative, like putting us in boxes. And she was just like throwing me out of the box and going, no, 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 no. Like we really like co-directed the film. And even though she gave me credit for it, it's like, it was her like just getting me to get out of my way of thinking and think a new way. Um, yeah. So she's
yeah.
like,
I'm gonna have to take her number or email from you and reach out. That could be a good segue into our next episode.
yeah, cool.
But yeah, as always, thanks so much for the time, Cutter.
Yeah.
Any other last words? Have we done this marathon well?
No, that's it. I'm just excited, and I remain sort of optimistic at like what new technologies do for artists. At it's history is like the best example of how people always adapt and make new technologies work for creative reasons. So I like there's going to be a growing period. There's going to be a shift. It's going to hurt, but it's also going to feel good. So I think both, that's all part of it.
Totally, yeah. And I'll be right here observing, not creating so much, but observing and reflecting and hopefully asking some of the right questions as we go through this journey.